The amazing body of work that Stetson Bennett has produced over the last couple of years is quite incredible. Even he didn't expect his journey to turn out this astonishing, but he truly found a way to make his presence known despite the more talented competition ahead of him and the odds being stacked against him. He always knew who he was as a player and stayed confident in his ability, but also was determined to prove that he could play and lead at the highest level of college football. This is the Stetson Bennett story. Stetson Bennett was born on October 29, 1997 in Blackshear, Georgia. Now the game definitely ran deep into the family because his grandfather played quarterback for the University of South Carolina from 1958 to 1960 and was later on a coach. Now coming up as a kid, Stetson was a diehard Georgia fan and went to roughly 90 games, all the way back until the age of 4 years old. In the summer of 2004, his family moved to Brantley in Southeast Georgia, where he played on the Brantley Bandits, a recreational football team coached by his father. During Bennett's 7th grade season in 2010, the Brantley Bandits played a 34-game schedule, including 3 games in 1 day, and his team finished the season 32-2. As a 8th grader, while attending Pierce County High School, he threw for over 450 yards against the rival school's JV team, and shortly after, the varsity coach told his dad that Stetson Bennett is for real and that he's never seen a performance like his son had, but also proceeded to tell him that his son could throw it in the mailbox. A couple years later, one of his teammates, whose father was a mayor of a nearby town, gave Stetson Bennett a U.S. Postal Service hat. Everyone started calling him the mailman, and just like that, it became his real nickname. He wore it to college camps and even 7-on-7 tournaments. But even with all that, the overall recognition wasn't there. In 2015, as a junior, that would be his first year starting at QB. He threw for a total of 2,924 passing yards, 18 total passing touchdowns, only 9 interceptions, while completing 65% of his passes. But he also got active in the open field, as he had 547 rushing yards, averaging almost 9 yards per carry, and 11 total touchdowns on the ground. And he helped lead Pierce High School to a record of 11-4. But he really took that next step in his senior season, as he threw for 3,724 yards. He completed 62% of his passes, 40 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. He rushed for 6 total touchdowns and 490 yards, averaging 6 yards per carry. So after finishing his high school career, throwing for 3,700 yards, rushing for 500 yards, and scoring 40 total touchdowns, his only FBS scholarship offer came from Middle Tennessee State. FBS coaches just weren't interested on the simple facts that he was shorter than 6 foot and weighed less than 200 pounds. Now, even though his parents attended UGA and Stetson was a diehard fan, he was getting no interest from the school until Georgia's signee Richard LeCounte spoke highly about Stetson to head coach Kirby Smart. Stetson Bennett chose to join the Bulldogs as a walk-on and was around the scout team often in 2017. Bennett thought that this would be the best opportunity to take, as he stated that the path would be easier and the regret would be less to go here right out of high school. He just wanted to try it out, and if it didn't work out, then he would transfer into another school. Mel Tucker, who was the defensive coordinator at the time, was very impressed with him. In fact, NFL linebacker Lorenzo Carter said that Stetson made him and NFL linebacker Roquan Smith look silly in practice. Now, Georgia did go on to sign one of the nation's top quarterback recruits in Justin Fields, who was going to be competing with Jake Fromm, and Stetson knew he was going to be the 3rd string, which triggered him to make the decision to transfer into Jones College, located in Ellisville, Mississippi, and led his team to a 10-2 overall record, a South Division championship, and a MAC-JC championship, with a Mississippi Bowl win over Eastern Arizona. He threw for just under 2,000 yards with 16 touchdowns and 4 touchdowns on the ground. And so after his great JUCO campaign, he was en route to transfer. At the time, it just seemed as though that he would sign with the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, but out of nowhere, he got a call from Georgia on National Signing Day with an offer to come back on full scholarship. It was a huge decision to make, and he went to his parents for answers. His mother was against coming back to UGA, while on the other hand, his father was all for it. Bennett made the decision to return back to his old stomping ground in 2019, and everything was kind of the same. In his season back at Georgia as a redshirt sophomore, he played in 4 games as a backup. He completed 74% of his passes on 27 attempts. He threw for 260 yards, 2 touchdown passes, and 1 interception. And on the ground, he had 1 touchdown. Now going into the 2020 season, things weren't looking good for him, as it just seemed as though he wasn't going to get any field time that season. The quarterbacks in front of him consisted of Jamie Newman, JT Daniels, and DeJuan Mathis. Now JT wasn't quite cleared to come back from injury. And on September 2nd of 2020, Jamie Newman announced that he would be opting out for the season due to COVID. It was looking like Bennett's chances of getting the starting position were getting closer and closer. But right after, in the season opener against Arkansas, Kirby decided to go with Mathis, but he performed poorly. Bennett came off the bench and threw for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns and led the Bulldogs to a 27-point victory. He continued his stellar performances, and it was looking like he was going to be granted the keys to the starting QB position, but he did go on to struggle the rest of the season. JT Daniels was finally able to return and started the remaining 4 games of the season, winning every single game. In the 2021 season, with a lot of people having championship aspirations around the team, JT Daniels was named the starting quarterback, and Stetson Bennett thought about transferring once again, but he wanted to get his degree from Georgia. Now things would actually change earlier on in the season, because as soon as JT got hurt once again, Stetson Bennett was back into the starting lineup, and once JT became healthy, unlike the previous year, Stetson remained the starting quarterback. So throughout the rest of the season, his numbers weren't anything outstanding, but he really did contribute and was doing the things that mattered, and that was winning games. He completed almost 65% of his passes. He threw for 2,862 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He led the Bulldogs to an undefeated record heading into the SEC championship, but Bennett did go on to underperform as he threw 49 times, completing only 60% of his passes, and he also threw 2 big vital interceptions. It was an ugly performance as Georgia simply got crushed, but the bright side of things was that they still had a spot in the college football playoffs. So as they entered the playoffs as the 3rd seed, many people were skeptical about Stetson being able to lead the team to a national championship, but he proved all the doubters wrong. Against Michigan, he threw for over 300 yards along with 3 passing touchdowns. In that game, he was looking like one of, if not the best, quarterback in all of college football. So as they got past Michigan and entered the national championship game, Stetson Bennett got off to a sluggish start and even had people all across the internet calling Kirby smart to put in JT Daniels to somehow get the ball rolling, but instead he just stuck it out with Bennett. But after Stetson fumbled the ball earlier in the 4th quarter, a lot of people thought it was over as Alabama took the lead. But Bennett turned it up a couple notches and made some of the biggest plays in his whole entire career to lead his team to a national championship. He became the first former walk-on to beat a Nick Saban team since 1997. He was the first quarterback that was recruited as a 2-star to win a national title. He was the first quarterback to be ranked out of the top 20 at his position to win a national championship in the last 2 decades. Right after that amazing season, Bennett decided to use his last year of NCAA eligibility and once again play for the Georgia Bulldogs. On April 13, 2022, JT Daniels made the decision to transfer into West Virginia, as he was most likely not going to get the starting position back from Stetson Bennett. Going into the 2022-23 season with the serious chance of the Bulldogs winning back-to-back national championships, he averaged around 2 touchdowns per game and led Georgia to an undefeated record. So after finishing 4th in Heisman voting, he took that next step and had arguably one of his best performances against LSU in the SEC championship game. He threw for 274 yards to go along with 4 touchdowns in a win. Now, as they entered the playoffs as the #1 seed with a record of 13-0, they faced off against the #4 seed Ohio State. Things weren't looking too good for them, but as the defense got a couple crucial stops, Stetson delivered with a game-winning touchdown pass with just under a minute left. And even with Ohio State getting the field goal range, Noah Ruggles did miss the kick wide left, which allowed Georgia to win 42-41 in the national championship game. As the Bulldogs faced TCU, Bennett had one of the best performances in the history of the national championship game. He completed 18 of 25 passes for 304 yards and 4 touchdowns, while also rushing 3 times for 39 yards and 2 touchdowns, simply obliterating TCU's defense. Bennett became the first former walk-on since the AP poll debuted in 1936 to win back-to-back national titles as the primary starting quarterback. Stetson Bennett's journey is one of the most inspirational journeys ever. From only being regarded as a 2-star recruit coming out of high school to having to prove himself on a daily basis through all the noise that could have weighed him down, he knew that his hard work and determination would pay off one day, which is exactly why he will go down as the most accomplished quarterback in school history.
There's so many hours that people have no idea, whatever profession that you choose, it doesn't just happen. But I tell them, work, don't wonder if this work is good enough, just go do it.
And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Stetson Bennett story.